Thank you very much indeed. And it's very good to be with you wherever you are in the world. I thoroughly enjoyed this morning's session and we learnt a lot from each other. So thank you. At the heart of being an Anglican is the call to strive to safeguard the integrity of creation and to sustain and renew the face of the earth, God's creation, God's gift. And when we plant and care for trees, we're not only living out this aspect of our discipleship, but I think we're also expressing a great hope for the future. This hope is beautifully expressed in a quotation often attributed to Martin Luther. Even if I knew that tomorrow the world would go to pieces, he said, I would still plant my apple tree. You see, planting a tree is an act of faith, as unless you are really, really young, you're unlikely to see it grow into its full maturity. We are making a deliberate act by planting trees to contribute to a future that is not of our own will, but will be affected for good or ill by our actions. Trees are beautiful and majestic and often dwarf us by their scale. Their length of life also dwarfs our lives too. When felled, we can estimate the age from the annual growth rings in their trunks, which also lay out the history about the years of plenty and the years of drought and the years of disease by how wide those rings are or the colorations of them. Many tree species are endangered, and as climate changes, they are increasingly affected by new pests and diseases. By caring for trees, so we are mirroring God's love of creation and are living out that call to Adam in Genesis chapter 2 to have a watching protection and to seek to preserve God's gift. In tending creation as God's caretakers and experiencing God's blessings on our faithful labours, might we just glimpse another dimension of shalom, life as God intended it originally, and life as God will restore it in the age to come. The Christian narrative, of course, begins in a garden of trees described in Genesis, where Adam and Eve are warned not to eat from the tree of knowledge. Knowledge can be a dangerous thing. At the end of the biblical narrative in Revelation, we look forward to paradise regained with a tree-lined river reflecting God's benevolence, where the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations. Jesus was laid as an infant in a feeding trough, likely made from wood, and he learnt his father's craft in feeling the grain and having an eye to what a plank might uniquely become. He would have learned to create joints, to bring things together, and how to also plane off the rough edges, all learnt in the carpenter's shop of Nazareth. Years later, outside a city wall, he was pinned to the wood of a tree, the cruel nails holding him in place as he was laid on a crossbar of torture, creating a joint between heaven and earth, giving of himself to plane off our sin that clings so close. And different cultures associate various tree species with the wood of the cross. Here in the UK, the aspen, Betula tremula is its scientific name, is referred to with that second part of the scientific name, tremula, from which we get the word tremble, because aspen's leaves are always shaking. They're on very long stalks. as if they're still shaking in fear for having been the wood of the crucifixion. You might have similar folk stories in your culture about different trees. In many places, there are veteran trees which stand statesmanlike and are revered for their sense of permanence. Communities have shared stories under their shade. In their branches, children have climbed and outlaws have hidden. Their fruit has filled hungry bellies, and fallen timber has been used for construction or to cook a meal or to warm the cold night air. And in little nooks and crannies in the tree, a myriad of animals and plants grow. Meanwhile, the whole tree breathes in and breathes out through their leaf-filled chloroplasts, locking away carbon from the atmosphere. Much of it, of course, created in the north from our over-dependence on fossil fuels to feed our demanding lifestyles. These trees hold the memories of community in their anchored waiting. They sometimes bear the scars of war or the dead of the pandemic buried in their shadow. They are places where saints and sinners are recalled. Perhaps the tree you plant this year will be a place where you will be remembered from one generation to another. And I have, on many occasions, sat under trees in different places of the world and opened the scriptures with small groups of people in their shade, in their shelter, and discovered more about each other's walk with the Lord. Throughout, of course, the biblical narrative, we find people encountering God by trees. Abraham entertained angels at the oaks of Mamre. Moses stood shoeless next to the burning bush. Elijah sat in despair by a broom tree and was given fresh baking. Nathanael was called from under a fig tree to a new way of living. And Zacchaeus, well, he climbed the sycamore tree because he was so desperate to see Jesus pass by. People speak of entering a connection with the Creator amidst nature and trees. Walking in a forest environment is shown to be good for your blood pressure, for body, mind, and soul. The Japanese call it Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing. No wonder there are those who, when in nature, feel that they can join in the great song of creation that you can, in a sense, hear all around you. Let everything that has breath praise the Lord. And that's why I give every person whom I confirm a tree to plant. It wasn't my idea, it came from Tanzania. And I know in different countries, people do that at baptisms, at weddings, confirmations, even funerals. But I gave a confirmation candidate a little hazel tree, a tree that hopefully will live and grow as their faith lives and grows. Why a hazel tree? Well, in this fine city of Norwich, in the east of England, lived Mother Julian of Norwich, our local saint in the medieval period, who held in the palm of her hand a tiny little hazelnut. And in that moment, saw something of the wonder and the beauty of God. Planting a tree should make us like children again. We should be drawn back to a childlike awe and wonder at the whole beauty of creation. I encourage you, hold on to that and enable it to shape how you see the earth as you get your hands grubby and dirty in the soil as you plant? How might we each live more simply so that others might simply live? And how might we encourage others in our congregations, our parishes, our chaplaincies, who you serve and lead, to tread more gently on this single island planet home we share, for the good of the whole of God's creation and all who will come after us?